back to Buck Recipes, your favorite cooking show. And before we begin here, I want you to do me a favor. Think of mac and cheese. Now, what comes to mind when you think of mac and cheese? Probably something yellow, saucy, creamy, delicious, but most of all, cheesy. Well, today we're getting back to food remixes, and during these food remixes we're going to generally promise three things. One, no cups, no measurements, none of that. Nothing that resembles a recipe. Come on people, it's in the title. Second thing, we're always going to use beer. Cause hell yeah, beer, it's delicious. You should try it sometime. Unless you're underage, wait a while, but then try it sometime. Number 3, every meal is going to be a chance to experiment. What's the point of doing something if you're not pushing the boundaries? Having said all that, guys, today we're going to push some boundaries on good old mac and cheese. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, it's going to be some pretty standard stuff as far as mac and cheese goes, but with one little catch. No yellow cheese, none. Today, we're making mackiest of mac cheeses. The most mackable mac cheeses, let's go with that. And we're going to do it completely with white cheeses. Let's get started. Alright, so first thing I did was get out a pot that I'm going to cook the noodles in. And I just took a little bit of chicken broth, a good chunk of black pepper, and started heating that. After it heated for a little while, I added a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, and then brought it to a boil. Once that's to a nice good boil, I went ahead and added some curly pasta. So next up, gotta get the pan out, get a good chunk of butter, toss it in, add a whole bunch of black pepper, fresh ground. We're just gonna let that sit for a little while on low heat. Next, I decided to cut up a red shallot. Gave it a really fine chop. As well as some mushrooms. And I definitely wanted the most texture out of this as possible, so I did a fine dice on that one too. Shallots were the first thing to be added to the butter mixture. That way that oniony, garlicky spice flavor gets embedded in the butter. And then I added the mushrooms. That way it's a more complete sharing of these flavors. After sauteing those for a good while, went ahead and added just a touch of red wine. It's just gonna add that little extra oomph that we're looking for. Now for this next part, I needed 2 pots. The bigger one I filled about halfway with water and then brought to a boil. Whoa! Now real quick here guys, the beer I'm using today is Estad Berger. It's something. Starts with an S. But Estad Berger by, shit, I don't know. I'm guessing it's Tatra Brewing. I was warned about this beer. It's essentially tastes and smells just like liquid smoke. So I wouldn't recommend drinking it. However, it's going to add the perfect smoky profile for what we're doing today. Really complement the cheese well and just add a whole new depth to the flavor. And you guys know my usual rule, no wasting beer. But I gotta drive somewhere in a few hours, so I'm just gonna save this for later. But I promise you, none of this is going to waste. See? Stocked for later, to enjoy another time. Or maybe not, maybe I won't like this. In the smaller pot, I just threw in a few good globs of cream cheese and then added some of this really smoky beer. And before putting it on heat, I decided to give it a real good stirring. It was still kind of chunky towards the end of that stirring, but it gave us a head start on the consistency we're aiming for. Next thing I did to create the cheese sauce was go ahead and add that smaller pot into the hot water after that stirring. And just really carefully monitor the initial progress of that, stirring it regularly. Next, I busted out some white cheddar from Tillamook, Oregon. It's gonna mesh well with the smokiness without making our mac and cheese overly smoky. And it should kind of add a little extra savoriness to this. And to make sure that would dissolve into beer rather quickly, I was sure to cut it up into somewhat fine pieces. And just introduce them slowly into the beer mixture. Careful not to oversaturate the mixture with cheese. Only try to give it as much cheese as it could handle. You gotta continue with the continuous stirring just to make sure that everything's getting dissolved evenly into the mixture. And regardless if you stir or don't stir, it really helps to stay near the stove to help regulate the heat. Next, I added some Parmesan to help make sure that's got a healthy texture and that provides a certain level of viscosity that's always there with the best mac and cheeses. So now it's time to start assembling our mac and cheese. Before we throw it into the oven, what I did is I went ahead and dumped the scallions and mushroom combo into the cheese sauce. And then I started to slowly add the noodles. That way I was able to really control the mushroom scallion filler to noodle to cheese ratio and make sure that nothing's completely out of proportion there. I also added just a little bit more Parmesan to make sure that the insides aren't going to be too crazy or too liquid. Of course, you gotta preheat your oven. While that oven was preheating, I went ahead and got out a special little dessert tin with a release edge for the sides. That way we can get this cool kind of cylindrical cross section for our mac and cheese. And just went ahead, added that cheese, mushroom, scallion, noodle mixture in there. And then I just let that mixture bake by itself for a little while so it can firm up a little bit before I add a layer of some sort of feta cheese that's been seasoned. And then on top of that, I did another layer of Parmesan. And the last step's real simple. I just put it in the oven. I was just gonna let it sit in there until I got the perfect texture and color on top. Oh lordy. Look at that. Oh yeah. Now it's looking pretty good. But I want to get the top just a little bit more color to it. Time for a secret weapon. Okay, maybe it's not time for a secret weapon. It's not time for a secret weapon. How the fuck am I gonna do this? So first taste, I'm going to go just right here. That's really cheesy. It's like you bite in, you get the Parmesan texture, with a little bit of the feta on top. And if you get a good chunk of the crust, really, the first thing all you taste is the Parmesan. But then the beer comes through, the smokiness of that beer. And then you also get the white cheddar notes, which are quite nice. And not bad. There's a good chunk of feta. Yeah, Parmesan actually might be borderline overpowering. The mushrooms and the scallions add just the right amount of texture. And that cheese, beer cheese sauce. Phenomenal. I see more scallions on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a shot. Yeah, pretty good. I almost wish it was a little bit more peppery. But there's no room to complain on this. This is cheese heaven. God, I'm going to be constipated for like a week. Pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this Parmesan though. Get right into the middle. Okay. So overall, it's really delicious, but if I did this ever again, I would definitely cut down on the Parmesan like tenfold, because right now, if you get any chunk of the top, it's just like way too Parmesan. Like dominates the whole dish. Let's try mixing it and see what that does. Okay, with Parmesan crust mixed in, that's actually a bit better. That's much better actually. Wow, what a difference layers make. Woo, yeah, not bad. But anytime I do this again, I'm definitely cutting down on the Parmesan. It's a lot. It's a lot of a lot. But overall, highly recommended to try and replicate this. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I got plenty of other food remixes on that channel, as well as a new segment. It's the last thing I upload besides this. Go ahead and give that a shot. Till then, throw me a thumbs up if you thought it looked delicious. Subscribe if you want to see more food remixes. And of course, fuck recipes.